You also created a DIY double trellis net. Can you talk to us how you went about doing that?
And that actually expanded from one of my first couple of grows. I had a bigger tent. It was a 5x5 instead of my 2x4s. I broke it down too. I kind of saw an example from like Mr. Canuck when I was watching his videos. A lot of it, he gets really really tall plants, but they're always flopping around. Even if he has a single trellis and they just flop around. So I mean, I imagine like why not have a double trellis? Run one, and then when it surpasses that one, run the second one. I mean, you're always gonna have stragglers at the bottom that you're gonna want to like kind of move over to the corner or to a point where you have lighting. I know nowadays there's a lot of like side lights or stuff you can add to the bottom of your tent to add some sun, but not everyone has that same thing. So you want to train. I'm big on training, and it comes to like positioning your plants or even like kind of like bonsaiing them to a point where they lay down on you. You know, my first grow I had one plant that was filled the whole 5x5 tent, and I was running that double trellis where I can get them laying sideways toward the end of the end of the plant, and it grew out big. It was it was my first grow, and I put like slightly little than 500, and I mean I still have a little bit left over from years ago, if anything. But the trellis net is definitely a big help. PVC piping, it's lightweight. It's really like flexible. You can put it and move around as you please. Just be good with your measurements. Materials aren't too costly when it comes to things like that. The reason I built my own, I mean, not stacking two on top of one another, it's another cost-effective kind of thing. I mean, if you notice how much these things cost online, you're mostly paying for the shipping. For instance, I love Gorilla Go tent, and clearly they sell everything nowadays. It's like AC Infinity, they're a kind of one-stop shop. I Gorilla Grow tent is here in California. I wanted to buy a $20 trellis net, and it was another like $25 or $30 to ship it over to me. I'm like, can I pick it up? It's right here in Los Angeles. Like, unfortunately, no, we can't. So that was my turnaround to go to Home Depot. It was like another less 5 miles, and go build my own with some string. Or you can go on Amazon, pick up the trellis net, and run it over a frame of your own. It's pretty basic, but I mean, it goes without saying. Like, you really just have to put yourself forward and have to want to make these things and not have to wait for shipping or paying someone else to make it for you. And I kind of pushed that across the board. We've seen a lot of things I do, whether it's growing or fixing a car. If I can't fix it, if I don't know 100% sure, I'm not going to do it. But if I can, I'm going to attempt. But without any loss for the most part.
You can certainly save a bunch of money doing it DIY, and I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of people go for it. Not just because they're good with their hands, but because it's going to save them money as well. So for the PVC double trellis, what size PVC? And then when you're connected them and they have, what's it called, the elbow pieces, is there any like glue or any sealant or anything that connects it to make sure everything locks in place, or what?
It really depends on you. If you wanted to have like a permanent fixture, yeah, there is a PVC adhesive that specifically for PVC, so the plastic can stick to one another. And then they also have like threaded joints that you can get where you can just screw them in there and then reuse them again later. I prefer more the threaded joints. So if you ever wanted to break down that same trellis, you can. And I did that same thing. I had a big 5x5 trellis. I broke down and I made a 3x3 trellis to fit a shower grow. And I just moved it around. I try to reuse as much as I can. And I mean, I may not have a 5x5 in there, but now I have another opportunity to use it for my small 3x3. But yeah, it's for putting it together, it's really to your spec. So if you plan on reusing it, don't go the permanent route. Shoot for threaded, they can screw it in and unscrew it. And if you find that it's something going to be a staple within that same tent that's not going to change, go ahead and get an adhesive. It smells at first, but it's non-toxic. It's not going to bother your plants. It'll set it, and you can forget it for the most part.
Good to know. And then for the actual thread that is run, the ones I've seen online of people doing it, they're basically just taking screws and then putting it into the side of the PVC at a certain spacing, and then they're using the twine or string and running it up and down to make squares. Is that pretty much how you do it, or like what's your method of that part?
I want to say my Mark One, my first prototype, I definitely did the whole eyelet screws into the PVC. It definitely is more tedious of work. You also have to make sure your measurements are on point with how big you want the squares. So when I made double trellis, I did like a 4-inch square to a 6-inch square, so it can kind of like open up between, how it expands. With the eyelet screws that you're going to put in there, you're kind of going to have to play Spider-Man and go end to end. And if, one line kind of is loosened, then you're going to have like a floppy area for that same reason. I found that getting the nylon ones on Amazon are just as good. And you're going to find that zip ties are going to be your best friend. And that goes across the board too, between your whole grove. Zip ties are a savior. Get that zip tie and just ratchet it on there between the right net. And you can modify the net as big as it is and cut it. It's no big deal. Those things are like $7 on Amazon. People also use wood for their framing, like 2x4s. They have to screw it more properly. It's not lightweight. But I like hanging my trellis from the top of my tent so I can kind of like adjust it as I please.
This clip is brought to you by AC Infinity. Use discount code MrGrow at 15 to save on any of their products.